joined now by BTN basketball analyst and a Hawkeye legend in his own right, Jess Settles, to lend some perspective to this list. Jess, you and I are of a similar vintage, so I imagine that the teams of Roy Marble, B.J. Armstrong were the ones that formed your youth as you watched the Hawkeyes as a youngster. What do you remember the most about Roy Marble Sr., the player?
Roy Marble, Rick, came to Iowa with the reputation of not only being an elite scorer, but also a great defender. And if you remember back in the day, he was mentioned in the same breath as Michael Jordan. I mean, as crazy as that sounds, that's how great he was coming out of Michigan. And he came to Iowa, and he was instant offense, a guy who could score from anywhere on the court. He played above the rim. He wore the baggy shorts. He had the bald head. And any of us growing up in that era loved Roy Marble. I remember going to a middle school clinic where he was there, got his autograph, and just wanted to be like him.
B.J. Armstrong was on some of those same teams, obviously a much different skill set, but equally as effective. What do you recall the most about B.J.?
B.J. was the perfect point guard for Dr. Tom Davis's system. He could pressure a ball handler, and he was lightning quick. No one could keep him away from the rim. He could always get to the paint, and his shot got better and better each year to the point where you remember when he played for the Bulls, he was a knockdown shooter with Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen. When he first came to Iowa, he came under George Raveling, and he wasn't sure he was going to stick around, and Dr. Tom took him on a European trip with that team, and the rest is history. They connected. He became a coach on the court, and many people, many Iowa fans and many Big Ten coaches consider those late 80s Iowa's teams to be the best ever.
Well, Jess, Lester, Brown, Nelson, those guys played obviously before you were able to watch much Hawkeye basketball, but you know a ton about the history of this program. What's your take specifically on Ronnie Lester and downtown Freddie Brown?
Rick, Ronnie Lester is considered by most of us who wore the uniform and most Iowa fans as the greatest player in the history of the program. I talked to legendary trainer John Striefel before I came on the air, and he reiterated how great Ronnie was. I forgot that Magic Johnson once said, quote, "Ronnie is the best point guard I've ever played against," end quote. So that's a heavy hitter singing praises. Downtown Freddie Brown, I heard his name from my dad growing up. He was only at Iowa for 2 years, but he's one of the all-time great scorers. He averaged 27 points a game as a senior for Ralph Miller on those teams that always broke 100. So had he been there 4 years, I think most people think he would be the all-time leading scorer. And obviously Don Nelson gets most of his fame and fortune from coaching in the NBA, but a two-time All-American at Iowa, a hard worker, and just a legendary player. These are the names I grew up with, Rick, and it's just so great to see them all honored this way.
Lastly, Jess, anytime you put together a list like this, there are some very qualified individuals, yourself included, who don't quite make the all-time starting five. Who could have, or perhaps in your opinion, should have also been on this list?
I played with a great point guard, a first-team All-American, Andre Woolridge, and he was such a strong physical point guard and led the Big Ten in scoring and assists his senior year. Bobby Jackson of Minnesota was Player of the Year, but Andre was elite. A.C. Earl was a very dominant center in the early 90s for Dr. Tom Davis. But I do think this starting five is darn close to the best five we've ever had. And so you give the fans credit for putting the right team together.
Great perspective on Iowa's all-time starting five by Jess Settles. Jess, as always, great to catch up. See you soon in the studio, my man.
Thanks a lot, Rick. We'll see you soon.